Hello guys, hola. It is Tuesday. Hola, ¿cómo estás? How is everybody? I hope you guys are doing great on this Tuesday. We're going to go ahead and continue working, guys. We are continuously going over genres. Yesterday was a little iffy. I know it was kind of hard focusing on the new skill, but you guys will get it every day we continue practicing. Okay, so this is the time where if you haven't done your PDN, go ahead and pause the video. If you have done your PDN, then you can continue working with me now. So let's go ahead and get started. Um, Here you had to read each passage and answer the following questions. So every question is a skill that we have gone over just to kind of continue. I'm sorry, guys. Whew, that is trifling. So Miss Simmons, you need to go to bed. But yeah, all of these skills we have learned. And so when we do things like this, it's just to continue to keep in our mind fresh the things that we have learned. All right. So it says thousands of people die each year because of accidents involving drugs or alcohol. Lives could be saved. So thousands of people die each year. This is a part of the clue because of accidents involving drugs or alcohol. Lives could be saved if our town adopts a free public taxi service. By providing such a service, we could prevent drunk drivers from endangering themselves or others. And so it says the question, which best describes the structure of the passage above. And so when I look at this, I see that there is a problem, which is the fact that people are dying because of drugs or alcohol, but then they present a solution, which is the free public taxi service. I know it's not order of events because it doesn't have any times or dates and it's not going in order. It's not cause and effect because of course, people are dying because of the accidents, but that's not the main structure. And then it's not comparing anything. And so problem and solution is the best text structure that we see here. Okay. Next. And so these questions were a little bit more difficult because, like, as you guys get close to the fifth grade, these are questions that are going to be needed in order for you to think critically. So it says, I have always felt like pie would be a much better dessert to serve at weddings than cake. And so I know that this is an opinion statement because it says felt and it uses the word I. Okay. Which of the following phrases gives the reader a clue that the sentence is an opinion? So I know that the sentence is an opinion. Let's see. Then cake, that doesn't give us anything. Serve at weddings, no. And pie would be, no. The sentence that gives me a clue that it's an opinion is when it says, I always felt. Anytime that someone is giving their opinion, they're saying I and they're using the words like feel or think. Remember, an opinion is what somebody feels or how someone thinks. Okay? Good. So let's continue reading or continue answering the questions. Next question. Dogs are the best. They wag their tails when they come home. Dogs like to snuggle when you are watching television. They never get mad or talk back if you scold them. Dogs sometimes like to chase a ball, but they might also chase cats. What is the author trying to persuade you to think? That means what does the author want what does the author want you to think? How does the author want you to feel? Does the author want you to think that to watch more television? Does the author want you to think that cat is a good pet? Or does the author want you to think that dogs wag their tails or you should get a dog for a pet? It talks about dogs. So it's talking about how dogs are the best pets. It's talking about why dogs are the best pets. So in my mind, I know that the author is trying to get me to know that I should get a dog as a pet because of all of the cool things that they do. Okay, so just know that these questions are fifth grade level questions because they allow us to think critically. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue working. So let's move on to our vocab work where we are still working our Greek and Latin roots. And so this week, our Latin root is micro, which means small, and scope, which means to scan or see, to scan closely. Okay, and so when we put those two words together, it becomes the word microscope. So, microscope is basically a tool used to observe small things closely. Okay, so notice how we put those two together to create this new definition. And so I'm going to go ahead and use this sentence. Miss Adams uses a microscope to observe new details about the insects. Okay, good. All right. So we're going to go ahead and um, skip the synonyms and antonyms and let's move right on to the visual image. And so how do I know that this image shows a microscope? First of all, I know because usually scientists use these to study things that are small. When you put the small object here, you can look within this magnifying part and you can observe little details on the small figure. And so we know that this image is a microscope because it shows a tool being used to observe small things closely. Okay, good. We're on a roll. We're doing really well on time. Let's continue working and let's go over our board equals paper again from yesterday. So remember, guys, we're talking about genres. So remember that there are two main genres that we have when we read, right? And so the two main genres, remember to put that in bold. The first genre that we know, of course, is fiction, right? And fiction is when you have events that are not true, or that are not factual, right? And so once upon a time, like when you have fairies, when you talk about aliens or the things that just cannot, princesses, queens, right? These are things that just cannot be true. And so the second genre is nonfiction, right? This is when you have stories that are told in story form, but they have real, actual facts. And so we know, just like we said yesterday, that there are several subgenres that fall under these two categories. This week, we are mainly only discussing fiction. Okay? Nonfiction have its different genres. This week, we're only focused on fiction. And so let's quickly go back over what we talked about yesterday. Realistic fiction is when you have when you have events that happen in real life with characters that are not real, right? So even though you have characters that are not real, things that happen to them are events that happen in real life. So we have realistic details and situations that people could face. And so we know that the example of realistic fiction would be B, because we actually experience Christmas, going to the store, spending money, right? Zombies, aliens are not things that happen in real life. So let's continue moving on. Historical fiction is another subgenre of fiction, right? It is, even though it is not real, it contains a setting that is drawn from history, and it also contains real historical facts. Okay? And so it says, which of the following is an example of historical fiction? I know that an example of historical fiction would be A, because it talks about the civil rights movement that happened in real life. Okay? Good. And then finally, we have fantasy, which is totally not real at all, right? And then we know that a fantasy is things that definitely could not happen in real life. Okay? And so that would be A, because we know that zombies and aliens are not real and they could never happen to us in real life. So let's go ahead and continue, and let's begin with our model. And so just like yesterday, guys, we're going to do the same exact thing that we did yesterday, except we have new short stories. We're going to read the stories and we're going to pick out the story elements that help us to figure out what the genre is. Okay, it says all Harry spell books. Ooh, so it says spell books. I know that might have to do something with like witches, or potions. His wand, robes, cauldron, and top of the line Nimbus 2000 broomstick had been locked in a cupboard under the stairs by Uncle Vernon the instant Harry had come home. What did the Dursleys care if Harry lost his place on the house Quidditch team because he hadn't practiced all summer? What was it to the Dursleys? I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. The Dursleys, if Harry went back to school without any of his homework done. The Dursleys were what? Wizards. We're talking about wizards called muggles. Not a drop of magical blood in their veins. And as far as they were concerned, having a wizard in the family was a matter of deepest shame. And so we're talking about wizards, we're talking about magic. And so we know that this cannot happen in real life. And so this must be a fantasy. Okay, and we know that the clues here: events and situations. Actually, we'll just say things that cannot happen in real life. Okay? All right. Let's move on to short passage number 2. My life. Oh, wait. Let me get my little pen ready. My life as an enslaved person. Okay. So, enslaved, I know that slavery was something that was real. And so I'm going to highlight that. It's very different from that of slaves who live on other plantations. Mr. Jefferson likes special foods, and I have learned. So, Mr. Jefferson, when they're talking about Mr. Jefferson, they're talking about Thomas Jefferson. And so we know that Thomas Jefferson was a famous person in history during this time. And I have learned to prepare them. Many of the vegetables I serve him have been grown here following Mr. Jefferson's specific directions. My children, all 10 of them, either live with me or at one of Mr. Jefferson's other plantations, such as Monticello or Bear Creek. I see them as often as I can, but I still miss them very much. One fear that I have is that one of my children will break a law and be punished or sent away. As an enslaved parent, I am not in charge of them. Mr. Jefferson, their slave master, gets to tell